I want to start with a confession that might sound familiar. There was a season in my life when my supplement cabinet looked like a mini drugstore. Every new headline, every new promise, every "this supports brain health" label, I bought it. I took it religiously. And if I'm being honest, it wasn't because I felt great. It was because I was scared. My dad, Gene Austin, was one of those minds that made you stop and think, how does a person's brain even do that? He was a NASA rocket scientist. He worked on programs like the X-33 and the International Space Station. I watched him go from doing complicated calculations in his head to getting lost in a normal day. He was living with Lewy body dementia. And later, my mom was diagnosed with a stage 4 glioblastoma brain tumor. So there I was, watching what neurological disease can do to the people you love most and thinking, I have to do something. I have to control what I can. And in that moment, supplements felt like a form of control. They felt like action. But then I ran into the truth that was both unsettling and wildly empowering. One of the biggest research summaries we have right now, the 2024 Lancet Commission, estimates that about 45% of dementia cases may be preventable through lifestyle factors we can actually modify. And here's the part that stopped me cold. That list of modifiable factors doesn't start with a supplement bottle. Welcome to the Healthy Life Approach podcast. I'm Kristen Beasley, a certified functional medicine, nutrition, and brain health coach. Today, we're talking about 5 daily brain habits that matter more than supplements. Not because supplements are useless, but because they're rarely the foundation. Along the way, we're going to touch on why major brain health experts say there's no supplement proven to stop cognitive decline. One quick note before we go further. I'm a health coach, not a physician. I'm sharing education based on peer-reviewed research, and I want you to take what fits, discuss it with your provider, and use this as a starting point for informed decisions. So let's set the stage with the big picture because this matters if you've ever felt like you're behind because you don't have the perfect supplement routine. A group called the Global Council on Brain Health, convened by AARP with leading experts in neuroscience and aging, has said the evidence does not support supplements as a way to prevent, slow, reverse, or stop cognitive decline or dementia. If you've been spending a lot of money chasing that promise, that statement can feel like a punch in the gut. But there's another side to it, and it's the hopeful side. Because when researchers test lifestyle changes seriously, the results are dramatic. The finger trial in Finland followed more than 1,200 older adults at risk of cognitive decline. Instead of giving them a pill, they gave them a program: movement, nutrition, cognitive training, social engagement, and careful monitoring of cardiovascular health. After 2 years, the people doing the multi-habit intervention improved their cognition far more than the control group, with benefits across several brain domains. We're talking about improvements ranging from 25 to 150% over controls, depending on the area measured. No supplement has ever shown anything close to that kind of impact. So here's the metaphor I want you to carry into the rest of this episode. Supplements can be helpful in the right context, but they're more like finishing touches. If your foundation is cracked, fancy paint doesn't fix the foundation. All right, 5 daily habits. Let's walk through them like a story, because in a lot of ways, this is the moment where the story turns from fear to agency. Habit number 1, protect your sleep. If I could give you only one daily behavior to prioritize for your brain, it would be sleep quality, especially deep sleep. Not just did you get in bed for 7 hours, but did your brain actually get the kind of sleep that restores and cleans it? Your brain has an actual cleanup system. It's called the glymphatic system, and it works best during deep, slow-wave sleep. During that stage, the spaces between brain cells increases, fluid moves through more freely, and metabolic waste gets cleared out, including amyloid beta, the protein associated with Alzheimer's plaques. In other words, deep sleep is when your brain takes out the trash. And when deep sleep gets chipped away over time, the risks climb. One large study connected decreases with deep sleep with substantially higher risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. Another long-term study found that regularly sleeping 6 hours or less in midlife was linked to higher dementia risk later on. There's also what sleep researchers describe as a vicious cycle. Less deep sleep can allow more amyloid accumulation, and that buildup can affect the parts of the brain that help generate deep sleep, which then makes sleep worse, and then the cycle keeps feeding itself. Now, if you're in perimenopause or menopause, I want to pause here because you're not imagining how hard sleep can get. Many women experience hot flashes, night sweats, frequent waking, and overall changes in sleep structure during this life stage. And when sleep is disrupted night after night, cognition can feel it. Focus, word finding, memory, emotional steadiness, sleep touches everything. So, what do you do with that information without getting overwhelmed? Here's your action step: aim for 7 to 8 hours and put real energy into sleep quality. Consistent bedtime, a cool, dark room, and screen boundaries are basic but powerful. And if insomnia is your struggle, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI, is widely recognized as a first line approach. Talk with your provider about what's right for you. Habit number 2, move your body consistently. This one still blows my mind. Exercise is the only intervention shown in randomized controlled trial to reverse age-related shrinkage in a key brain region tied to memory, the hippocampus. In a landmark study, sedentary older adults were assigned to a simple walking routine, about 40 minutes, 3 times a week. After a year, the walking group showed growth in the hippocampus, essentially reversing years of shrinkage, while the control group continued to lose volume. So, what's happening under the hood? Movement increases something called BDNF, or brain derived neurotrophic factor. You can think of BDNF as fertilizer for your brain. It supports the creation of new neurons and strengthens the connections between the ones you already have. And here's the part I love for anyone who thinks, I can't do much, so why bother? Even small amounts of activity are associated with meaningful reductions in risk compared with doing nothing. The all or nothing mindset is one of the biggest barriers to brain protective movement. Your brain benefits when you begin, not when you perfect it. Your action step: if you can, aim for the standard guideline of about 150 minutes a week of moderate aerobic activity plus resistance training. But if you're not there yet, start where you are. A 10-minute walk today beats a perfect plan that stays in your notes app for 6 months. Habit number 3, regulate your stress response. Let's talk about cortisol for a second, because this is where many high-functioning women get blindsided. You can be doing everything right and still feel foggy, reactive, scattered, or exhausted if your stress response is constantly on. The hippocampus, the memory center that we just talked about, has a high density of cortisol receptors. When cortisol remained elevated for too long, research shows it can reduce synaptic connections, suppress the growth of new neurons, and contribute to shrinkage in that region. And then here's the trap: the hippocampus also helps regulate the stress response. So when stress damages it, your brain becomes less able to shut stress off. More cortisol, less regulation, more damage. Another loop. But this is where the story gets hopeful again. Mindfulness practices have been shown to create measurable changes in brain structure. In a well-known line of research, just 8 weeks of consistent mindfulness practice was associated with increased gray matter density in regions linked to learning and memory, and decreased gray matter density in the amygdala, a key fear and threat center. 8 weeks, not 8 years, 8 weeks. And in menopause, this matters even more because stress chemistry can compound the cognitive changes that come with shifting hormones. There's also evidence that mind-body approaches like yoga, tai chi, Pilates, and meditation can improve sleep and mood during this transition, both of which indirectly support brain health too. Your action step starts so small you can't talk yourself out of it. 5 minutes a day of guided breathing or simple meditation. Consistency beats intensity here. Your nervous system doesn't need you to become a monk. It needs you to become familiar with coming back to calm. Now, if you're listening and thinking, okay, I expected a supplement episode and somehow I'm getting called out on my bedtime and my stress levels, you're not alone. But this is the point. The brain responds to daily inputs, and you get to choose those inputs. Habit number 4, build and protect social connections. This one surprises people because it sounds soft, like a nice extra, but social isolation and loneliness are now taken very seriously in dementia research. Large studies have linked social isolation with higher dementia risk over time, and major expert analyses have formally included social isolation as a modifiable risk factor. Why would connection matter so much to the brain? Because social interaction is cognitive cross-training. When you're in conversation, your brain has to listen, interpret tone, retrieve words, track meaning, read emotion, regulate your response, and shift perspective. That's a lot of brain circuitry firing together. Connection also builds something called cognitive reserve, basically your brain's resilience. It is the buffer that helps people function longer, even as pathology develops beneath the surface. And there's another link back to habit 3. Good relationships reduce chronic stress. Less stress chemistry over time supports brain structure and function. If you work from home, if you're caregiving, if you're in a life stage when friends are busy or your schedule has shrunk, social connections can quietly disappear. And menopause is a time when many women pull back, right when their brains could benefit from leaning in. Your action step: schedule a connection like it's a medical prescription. Text a friend and set up a walk. Join a class, show up to the book club even if you didn't finish the book. What matters is creating repeated, real contact. Habit number 5: eat a brain protective diet consistently. If there's one dietary pattern that comes up again and again for brain health, it is the MIND diet, which blends elements from the Mediterranean and DASH approaches. In long running research, people who followed it most closely showed slower cognitive decline, so much so that the difference can look like years of younger brain aging compared to those with low adherence. Mediterranean style eating patterns are also repeatedly associated with lower Alzheimer's risk in observational data. And there's an interesting twist that matters for women. Some findings suggest that adherence to mind style eating shows notable protection in women specifically, potentially because these foods are rich in anti inflammatory and antioxidant compounds that may help counter the inflammatory shifts that can accompany estrogen decline. Now, let's loop back to our supplement question. Here's the key idea: nutrients don't act in isolation in real life. Whole foods deliver packages: fiber, polyphenols, fats, micronutrients, and thousands of compounds working together. That is hard to replicate in a capsule. For example, fish consumption often correlates with better cognitive outcomes, but omega-3 supplements don't consistently reproduce that benefit in otherwise healthy populations. And in some studies, B vitamins only slowed brain atrophy in certain contexts, such as when omega-3 status was already strong, again pointing back to background nutrition. Your action step: keep it simple. Add 1 serving of leafy greens each day. Have berries a couple of times a week. Favor olive oil, nuts, beans, whole grains, and fatty fish if that works for you. Trade refined carbs for whole food versions when you can. You don't need a perfect diet. You need a steady pattern your brain can rely on. Now, let's talk about the question I know is sitting in the back of your mind. So, do supplements matter at all? Yes, they can, just not as the lead actor. If these 5 habits are the structure of your house, foundation, the walls, the roof, supplements are more like targeted upgrades, helpful when you need them, not what holds the house up. The best evidence for supplements tends to appear in targeted situations, correcting deficiencies, supporting documented needs, or in specific clinical contexts such as mild cognitive impairment under professional guidance. Omega-3s may be helpful for some people, especially with low intake or certain risk profiles. B vitamins can matter if you're deficient, and B12 deficiency becomes more common as we age. Vitamin D is worth addressing if you're low. Curcumin is intriguing but has challenges with absorption. And it's also important to say this plainly: some popular supplements have been tested and did not prevent dementia in large trials. So popular is not the same as proven. The framework I want you to remember is simple. Check for deficiencies, use labs when appropriate, be targeted, and don't ask supplements to do the job that sleep, movement, stress regulation, connection, and food were designed to do. Before we close, I want to talk directly to the women listening in perimenopause and beyond, because this is where my own urgency comes from. There's powerful work coming out of women's brain research showing that menopause transition involves real, measurable changes in the brain, changes in gray matter, white matter, and how the brain uses glucose for energy. And we also know that about 2/3 of Alzheimer's patients are women. That's not only about living longer. Hormonal shifts, particularly the decline in estrogen, remove a layer of neuroprotection during a time when Alzheimer's-related changes can begin building quietly for years. And if you've had that moment where you walk in a room and forget why you went in, or you lose a word you know, or you feel like your mental tabs keep crashing, that experience is incredibly common. Many perimenopausal women report cognitive changes. You're not making it up. You're not failing. It is real. But here's the part I wish someone had said to me when fear was driving me to buy yet another bottle. You are not powerless. Research suggests that after menopause, many brain measures stabilize and some areas recover. The fog lifts for many women. It did for me. The brain adapts, it builds workarounds, and that window, the transition itself, may be one of the most impactful times to intervene with daily habits that protect your brain long term. So let's lock it in. The 5 daily brain habits that matter more than supplements are: protect high quality sleep, move your body consistently, regulate your stress response, nurture social connection, and eat a brain protective whole food pattern like the Mind Diet. Build that foundation first. Then, if needed, use supplements strategically to fill gaps rather than trying to replace the basics. If this episode changed how you think about brain health, share it with someone you love, especially the woman who's buying every brain boost product but can't remember the last time she got 8 solid hours of sleep. Perspective can be the most powerful gift. I started down this path while watching my parents face neurological disease. I know how heavy and scary it can feel, but I also know from the science and from lived experience that you can become an active partner in your brain health story starting today. Take care of your beautiful brain. And just to reiterate, this podcast is for education, not medical advice. Please talk with your physician or qualified healthcare provider about your personal situation before making changes to your care plan. This podcast may contain affiliate links, and if you purchase via those links, I may receive a small commission at no additional cost to you.